welcome to Should I Buy This Game, featuring Charcuterie, the board game. My name is Christine, and in this video I'll give you an overview of how the game is played, and then share a few things I may like or dislike about the game to help you decide if you want to add Charcuterie, the board game, to your collection. Here we have Charcuterie, the board game, and this is basically the setup of the game. And in this video I'm going to give you an overview of how the game is played and scored. Then I'm going to talk a little about a solo mode I made up, and then go into things we liked and disliked about the game. So to start, this is all you really need for the setup. Each person gets a board, and it plays 2 to 6 people. This is the board where we're going to be putting our items. We have 6 little scoring cards here, 1 for each type. There's bread, cheese, dips, meats, vegetables, and fruits. And then everybody has a little scoring icon for the end of the game. And as well, at the beginning, everybody gets 2 recipe cards. They pick 1 to keep, and it's personal scoring bonuses. So the fewer bread you collect, the more points you score. So I'm going to keep that aside, and at the end of the game, we'll see how we do. Now, if we look here, it tells you basically how to play in terms of setup. So for 2 people, you do 4 stacks of 3 food tiles. With 3 people, you do 3 stacks of 4 food tiles, and it goes down. The game is played when everybody hosts twice, except in the 6 and maybe 5 player, you only host once. So I'm going to set up for a 2-player game. So I need 4 stacks of 3 items, which is a total of 12 items. So I go to my bag, and I'm going to pull out 12 items. I'm going to put them here. So I'm just going to start by laying them out. So we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, when you are the host, you get to decide how the food is set up in terms of the stacks. But you remember that you pick 2nd and 4th, and the opponent picks 1st and 3rd. So you're not going to put everything you want in one and then have the other player pick it. So what I like to do is I like to divide things. So I notice here I have 4 breads. So I'm going to separate the breads. I have 3 cheeses. So I'm going to separate the cheese. I have 2 dips. So maybe I'll put a dip here, a dip there, a fruit, and a meat. So it's sort of random on how we did it. Now let's go back up here to look at what we're doing. So for the bread, 1 square and 1 circle. We're looking for a pair, and that can be anywhere on your board. The cheese, we're looking for unique cheese in a group. For the dips, we're looking for unique dips, but you have to have at least 2 or else you lose points. For the meat, it has to be adjacent to bread. For each adjacent pair of vegetables and cheese, and for each unique fruit in a group of fruit. And so it sort of gives you some idea when you're picking. But when you're picking first, there's not too much to think about, really. So I'm going to get myself a dip, because I need at least 2 of those if I want to score points. So I'm going to just grab this, and I put it on my play mat. Then the other person might think they want to dip as well, so they're going for the same thing and take that one. Actually, the other person would have gone first. Let's be clear about that. I made that mistake. So they would have gone first, and they took their dip. I went second. I took my dip. They're going to go again, and they may be like, I want this. They're basically the same. It's cheeses, fruits, and breads. So they'll take this one, which will leave me with this, and I will take this one. So at this point, you can start looking. So for the bread, it was for each pair. So I'm like, okay, I can keep these together because they're going to give me points. Now, they don't need to be together at the end. A pair is just anywhere on the board. Now I have no meat, so the cheese is for each unique in a group. Well, I have the same cheese, so I know I want to keep those in separate groups. The vegetable is adjacent. Oh, I don't have vegetable. I have a fruit, and it's in a group and a dip. So at this point, I'm sort of just separating how my points are turning out. So then the second player is going to do the same thing. They're going to put out 12, and we're going to grab some more piles. So what I'm going to do is get myself to the point where it's at the end of the game, and then I'll go through of how I'm going to position everything together. So I ended up with 24 pieces of food on my board. And now it's time to score. And while we're scoring, I'll explain why I organized it the way I organized it. Now there are a few rules. Everything has to be within the board. You can't have anything hanging over. Everything has to be at least half showing. You can't completely cover up something. And if you're playing with 6 people, it can't go over this ring. Luckily, I was playing a 2-person game, so I think I can go over the ring. And the last one was, oh, everything must touch the board. So you can't just put food sort of like in the middle on top. Everything has to be touching the board at some point. So it ends up that this little board is actually our scoreboard as well. And I'll start with my little strawberry token. So I'm going to go through the scoring for each one. So for each pair of 1 square and 1 circle bread. Now, when it says each pair, it could be anywhere on the board. For this one, I ended up putting them in the same group, but I had 1, 2, 3 pairs of bread. They were worth 2 points each, so I just get 6 points for that. Then it's for each bread adjacent to meat, and you can score a maximum of 4 points per meat. So adjacent means it's touching it. And so this meat is touching 2 bread, and this meat is touching more than 2, but I can only score for 2. So it would be 4, 8 points. So I will add 8 points to my score. The cheese is for each unique cheese in a group of cheese. So I made this one group and this another group because it was a duplicate of the blue cheese. So when you look here, it's for 2, I get 3 points, and for 1, I get 1 point. So I get a whole 4 points for that one. This is for each adjacent pair of vegetables and cheese. So that's why I put these in a group. So I have, this is 1 pair and 1 pair, and the vegetable is touching the cheese. And so I get 8 points for that. The dip is for each unique dip on your board. So I only have 3 unique dips, even though I have 5 dips, so I don't score anything for these 2. So 3 gets me 9 points. And this is for each unique fruit in a group of fruit. Well, it ends up that I had all 5 fruits in one group. So, oh, there's more than 5 fruits, but I had 5. And so I get 15 points, which takes me right up to 50. And then on my card, it was the fewer bread items you collect. Well, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I only actually get 5 points for my bonus card. And so I would score 55 points. So that's not that great of a score. When I built this, I just pulled out items. I didn't actually pick them. So if I was playing a game, I'd probably be more picky and not have so many dips in that. You just want to look at what your scoring options are. There are more scoring cards once you learn how to play the game, and so to make it more challenging for placing it on. The other thing I just want to say too is that throughout the game you can sort of start pairing things, but you can, when it's time to score, you can take everything off your board and reset it up. So there isn't any like final placement in terms of per round. At the end of the game, you take everything you have and try to make your board really pretty. Now, officially, this game is for 2 to 6 players, but I devised a system where I could play it solo. And so what I do is I set it up for 2 players. So I put 4 sets of 3 food items. And then I decide which one I want to take. So say I will take this one. I predetermine which would be the one going away. So say the bottom left would go, then I would pick one more, and then this one would go away. And then I would use these items I collected to try and use them on my board. And so just by that, just having a system, like when you play other tile games solo, how there'll be 3 items and you pick one and one goes away. It's that same sort of idea. And if you just do that, you're playing by yourself. It doesn't really matter. This way you can enjoy the game solo and you don't have to wait for someone to come to play with you. So I played this game solo, as I mentioned earlier, as well as with Gemma and Mark. And we all enjoyed it. Some of us made prettier boards than others, but you know, that's part of the game. So anyway, the things we really enjoy about this game is the concept. We like all the components and having all the little food items. And Gemma and I are very artsy, so I make charcuterie boards. I like to make these flowers and display, and now I can play with food without actually having to touch it. So that's really fun too. We like how during the game you're not set on where you place something. At the end you can take it all off, look at your scoring points, and decide how are you going to arrange the food to get the most points. Now there are more of these scoring tiles, and Gemma and I have played with some of them, and they do get a lot more challenging. So when we had played, we scored really big with the bread card, but then we didn't score anything for a couple of the others. And so as you play and change up your cards, you do come across a lot more challenges. So overall, we just really enjoy it. It's a really quick game. It plays in within 20 minutes, half an hour tops. So it is a game you can play either if you're playing other games or when people just sort of come over. Anybody can play this game, or you can play it back to back a few times. And now a few challenges that we find about the game is one, we wish that we'd be able to take items off our board if they're not actually giving us any bonuses or scoring, because your board gets very cluttered, especially if you have all these dips. And 2 of these dips I couldn't even score. And when I played that game with Gemma that I was mentioning earlier with the different cards, I had 8 items on my board that I could not get a point for. So if I could remove some of those items to make the board better, I wish I could have done that. And speaking of prettiness of boards, we wish that there might be points given to the prettiest board on the table voted by the group, because Gemma and I like to put a lot of work into our boards, and we feel that we should deserve bonus points for that. When it comes to the scoring cards, there are 2 extra cards for each of the areas, the different food items. However, this game plays really fast, and so you could play multiple games of this. And so I really wish there were a lot more scoring cards, because I think we're going to go through the scoring cards really fast and want new and different challenges to the game. And one final little thing is that they made this board a little too realistic in our opinion, because both Gemma and I are constantly trying to wipe the crumbs off the board. And we wish those crumbs weren't there, because we're constantly doing that. So that's just a small little thing. But overall, we do really enjoy playing Charcuterie, and we look forward to playing it again. And let me know in the comments if you've played this game or if you plan on getting it yourself.